Welcome to Implicating the Real. My name is Michael. I'm joined by my good friend Joe. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good? Good. Glad to have you. We're joined by our good friend Liana. Liana, how are you?
Great.
Great. Today we're reading Seth Speaks again, of course, in chapter 11. The subtitle is After Death Choices and the Mechanics of Transition. I'd say this might be my favorite chapter so far.
It's very interesting.
I don't know if it's just recency bias, but I liked it.
I was hoping for a bigger menu, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw After Death Choices, I was like, let's go. We are gonna get into some cool, wacky stuff. It's mostly the stuff we already talked about.
Yeah, I think he doesn't go into it, but I think there's, an infinite amount of choices within the three
Within
choices.
each menu item, yeah.
Right.
And we'll just have to use our imaginations for some of those, I think.
Yeah. Well, so getting into the material a little bit, basically there's like three main categories of option, right?
After you died. Yeah.
And the categories are, you can reincarnate again. That's option 1. Option 2 is kind of, I don't know if we talked about it as much like during the podcast, but like in an earlier chapter, he talked a bit about there's this thing you can do where you can like dwell on the past life that you just lived, and you can sort of like replay it.
Yeah, and maybe you can find the quote just to jump up there for a second. It says, in many of these cases, there is a severe problem and a certain rigidity coupled with the perfectionist characteristics mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
A severe problem. That makes me feel like it was like a huge like regret or something. And it was just like so intense that they have to like repair that. It's like a wound or something. You have to like fix it before you go on. Or you would prefer to do that.
Yeah. So I guess when we get to that part, we can talk about it more. So that's like option 2.
I was saying one more thing. Like my other analogy there was like maybe like you just like failed your paper and you're just like editing it. Because it's like you're using your previous life and you're like just making these major changes.
Yeah, I thought of it sort of in the context, like to me it seemed like sort of like watching the tape,
Yeah.
Like if you're like an athlete, you're like, oh, I did this thing, but I actually should have done like this other kind of thing instead. And like, I thought I was doing really good here, but I can see I actually like was making all these mistakes that I like didn't notice at the time. And you're just like taking like really like micro like notice of like everything you did.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the third option is the one that's the wackiest, I think, which is that you can, Seth says, enter another probability system, I think is like how it's phrased, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that one seems like that contains a lot of other options.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm getting from when he is talking about the probability system, because elsewhere he talks about like having this whole different approach to reality where you're maybe like experiencing just like one life, but in multiple probabilities, where like part of you has an awareness of this like this thickness of experience. Do you think that's what he's referring to specifically, or partly, or not at all?
That's what I never thought of it that way. I thought of it more like there was this one time he was talking about thinking of chairs that your father made and seeing reality as more like associative. So if you think of one chair that your father had made 40 years ago, you automatically think of another chair that he made 20 years ago. You don't think of events linearly, but like associatively, where you just start thinking about chairs and death.
So that association is kind of your line of continuity.
Yeah, that's
like
how
you're
I
jumping
interpret it.
between probabilities.
Right. But the way you mentioned, I also think that would be valid. I mean, we just talked about how each menu item has an infinite way of...
Yeah, that's definitely the most foreign to us, I think, is of these three options, right?
Right, yeah.
And there'll be a little bit more detail about it later, but
Yeah, but just to get them laid out, these are basically like the three. This is like boom, boom, boom. This is the topic list. But then right after that, Seth says there's sort of a holding room too, for if you're like in indecision.
yeah, he keeps referring to the time of choosing.
The time of choosing.
And it sounds kind of cool. He says like, yeah, you meet friends, there's teachers there.
Oh, he also said that you can choose a mix of the three, kind of like customize your own education here. Where it's not just like you don't pick one of these three menu items, you can get like a blend of them.
Yeah, that part was kind of wacky to me. Like, I don't know if I completely understood.
Well, and I think he implied somewhere that part of the entity is choosing each of these options. And so maybe our choice is just like which part of that total awareness that we're going to choose to be aware of.
Yeah, because there was the thing about how, like, well, when you're doing this, you have to remember that, like, all time is, like, simultaneous. So it's, like, actually you're sort of, like, expanding in all the different directions. But you're at the, like, point of choosing, you're sort of making the decision of how that's going to work, like, in that moment, I guess.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing to think about.
Interesting.
But yeah, so, like, we talked earlier about, so you're going to die, and then you have to do whatever stuff you psychologically need. And then once you're sort of through with that, that's when you kind of enter this, like, place there's going to be, like, people you used to know. There's going to be the teachers there that are going to help you sort of orient, like, what's the plan here?
Yeah, you have to, first of all, realize you're dead and, divest yourself of these really false beliefs, particularly the negative ones. And then you're in a place where you can kind of become aware of what's going on, and this time of choosing is that thing. And I think it's worth trying to imagine too that this isn't a physical place. It's like a psychological place, right?
Mm-hmm.
It does, like I said, I think it is just worth like pausing and like reflecting on that, because it's just tricky for our minds to go there. Like all of our language is based on like physical metaphor, even if we are not intending it to mean it that way.
Right, yeah, because I know we talked earlier Seth had sort of described the locations as being sort of like schools or like mental health institutions, but it's like only by very loose, approximation.
Yeah, like to reverse the analogy in a sense, like a school would be just where like people that want to learn meet with people that want to teach.
Right.
It doesn't need a physical location in this sense. I like just this little nugget here too. He's talking about taking leave of the physical system, but he says this cannot be done, however, until the reincarnational cycle, once chosen, is completed. So the last choice exists for those who have developed their abilities through reincarnation as far as possible within that system. How did that one land with you, Joe?
So my interpretation of that was that I just thought he was saying that, well, obviously you can't be done with reincarnation if you're still in your life, because you have to die first. Or is that not what he's saying?
I think he's referring to the cycle, and there is like elsewhere he hints at certain kind of baseline requirements, like you have to be a mother, you have to be a father, and you're always going to be a child. But there's elsewhere he hints at other things that are kind of like most people choose to have this and this experience.
Okay, so your cycle isn't just like one life. It's like a set of experiences.
So what he's saying there is, if I'm not mistaken, is that like you could have like just realized you're dead and you have to go back.
My understanding was slightly different. I thought he meant that you are not allowed to stop physically incarnating until you realize, at least in one life or after one of those lives, that your thoughts create reality. Because he's explicitly said that. Your last life is when you realize that. You don't have to realize that when you're alive, but at least afterwards you should be like, oh shoot, you're right.
But I just get the feeling that it's more than just the realization. You have to have some abilities and some experiences. Like that's where I get the mother-father thing, is like that you just have like this empathetic understanding that you want to bring to the next level.
My only hesitation is he's explicitly said before that if, for example, you were a slave owner in the past, then you might opt to incarnate as a slave at one point. Or if you were a murderer in the past, you might opt to incarnate as a murder victim. But he never says that it's required.
Yeah, so he's kind of breaking down our rigid idea of karma.
Exactly. Right.
So like that to me suggests you're not bound to have a certain kind of life. But I still think that for some people, like I don't think you can just have one physical life. And And, he's all about like free will is always operating. So like I take a statement like this and I question like, oh, is that contradictory?
Yeah, I've always that was what struck me as strange, that you can't stop. You're not allowed to leave the reincarnational cycle unless you do this thing, but also free will. But
This
like,
is how I kind of have thought of it, I guess, like that you choose to do the reincarnational cycle. And it's not that you don't have a choice to do something else, but like that cycle is like a road in front of you. And basically what you're saying, like you have to continue walking on that road if you want to get, like a mile ahead. You can't just jump to a mile ahead. You have to walk. Does that make sense?
Right. It's like
Developmentally, there's like an actual path, and like you still have free will, but like you've planted your feet here. You can't just fly over there. You have to get there. You have to develop.
like if you're trying to build a shed, like maybe day one of building a shed is you spend all your time going and getting like all your like, supplies that you're going to do. And then you go to sleep. And then day two is you wake up and you go like, what am I going to do today? And then you see all the stuff laying out on the floor and you're like, I guess I should probably go start building the shed. And because I did the first part of doing that, you have the choice not to, but it's like, well, you committed to this project. You have to finish the project.
And you can't like petulantly say like, why can't I just have the shed?
Right.
You still have to build it.
yeah, the way I think of it is like, we in America are free to do what we want. We can drop out of college if we want to. But if you tell a college, I want a biochem degree, they're like, okay, well, you have to complete these courses to get that degree. Like, you can't just be like, I have my degree now, just leave. But you could leave at any point. You're just not going to get the degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And at some point, he does say that in rare circumstances, people are like granted a little sidebar existence or vacation. Did you guys catch that?
The sabbatical.
Sabbatical.
As like a tree.
No, I think that's when he talked about going into the other probability.
Well,
there was that fun thing though. Sorry.
Go ahead.
There was that fun thing though, like you're talking about how like he always wants to clarify that like you're in charge, like you have the freedom here. However, there are some like really important recommendations that you like really should follow. Like that came up too with like there was the thing about the people who like reincarnate like too early, like they didn't do enough planning and they're like, I'm gonna just jump right back in. And Seth seems to be like, you really shouldn't do that, but like you can, but like maybe you should listen to the teachers a little better. Like
that kind of brings me to a quote here. Before the time of choosing, however, there is a period of self-examination and your full history, in quotes, becomes available to you. You understand the nature of the entity you are advised by other portions of that entity more advanced than yourself. So that's hinting like part of what's advising you is part of your own larger identity. And I think that's where this free will part gets a little bit confusing especially because we're like so attached to time, and like we could be like fully incorporated into that larger identity when we chose to take the reincarnational cycle. Now we're experiencing this separateness and we're like, but I'm not choosing this. But like outside of time, you are choosing this. It's not like you did choose it before this life. It's like you are choosing it right now during your whole life.
That's how I look at it too.
Yeah.
Like you, capital U, chose this. Your greater entity did, but like you, as the petulant single human life, are rejecting it. But still, the greater you is like, no, I want to do this. I want to get my education.
Yeah. And that's why I feel kind of harsh making this judgment, but like some people like I've met say like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. I like, they just have this like feeling, and I'm like, I think at a larger part, you are choosing to be here. By virtue of being here, you're choosing to be here.
Yeah, right.
Does that make sense?
And presumably like while you're in your physical existence would be the hardest time to realize that, right?
Yeah.
Because you have that separation.
Yeah. And because of our own ideas of how we got here, a lot of us believe that like, oh, I didn't choose to be here. My parents created this and I'm just this byproduct of someone else's choice.
Right.
Every time I see someone online be like, I didn't consent to be born into capitalism, I'm like, maybe you did though. Like we wouldn't know in theory, like hypothetically.
And it allows our culture to just like feel victimized instead of
Yes.
like taking responsibility for our shared situation.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this recently, how much nicer psychologically it would be to just like have the certainty of like, oh no, this is a choice I made, you know?
Yeah. But you can choose to believe that.
You can choose to believe incorrect things if you would like to. I happen to be the incarnation that my entity has chosen me to focus on truth. So that's what we do.
What about, I don't have a good example off the top of my head, but I believe there are some things that you can choose to believe in, and you can't know if they're true or not, but you know choosing to believe it. This is a little Pascal's wager.
Yeah.
You know, choosing to believe it has benefits and choosing not to believe it doesn't.
Yeah.
So would you take the benefits even if you know that it's not necessarily true?
I think it's a case-to-case thing, right? Like, it's sort of like a question of like, how serious is this, you know?
For me, I guess I thought of an example. It's kind of like a little life hack that I thought of this probably as a teenager, and so maybe it deserves like reevaluation. But like, I thought it doesn't even have to be strictly true, but like I thought like a lifetime has like a finite amount of pain. And I'm like, I can take this pain in the gym and exercise and be healthy, or I can take it in the sick bed and just like over my life very like dully suffer from having poor health, like, and it doesn't need to be necessarily true that there's only a finite amount of pain, but like the belief or having enough of that belief allows me to like, in a way that I think like validates my own agency. Like I'm choosing to do this, even though it's uncomfortable sometimes. And, during that process, I can try to change my attitude about actually enjoying it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
An example, I think most people walk around believing that their shoe size is the shoe size that the shoe that they wear is, right? Like most of us just casually accept that.
Yeah.
They're like, this is the closest shoe size.
Joe's going to pop out around the corner like, but the truth is, man.
But like, think about it. Like, what if you just happen to have 2 feet that are like half size off from each other?
A lot of people do.
Imagine like if like most of people who have that just wear the same size shoe, on both feet. But it's like, if you really inquire into each foot's size, and then you actually take action to get shoes of different sizes for your 2 different sized feet, you'll actually have shoes that fit your feet better, right? It's just that benefit is potentially not worth the effort it would take, but the knowledge of that costs you nothing,
Yeah.
I mean, isn't this what optimism is in general? It's not like optimists are stupid and unaware of the horrible facts of reality. They choose not to focus on that. Like when you tell a kid you can do it, you're great, even though the kid sucks. You're not like trying to push this realism on it. The kid will function better if you nurture it and you tell it some white lies.
Yeah, I guess I tend to be a pretty pessimistic person, so I don't tend to view optimism that way.
Huh.
I view it more like the better case to be like sort of a stoicism, I guess, where it's like less I'm predisposed to think things will be good and more I'm predisposed to wonder, will worrying about this help me,
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's healthier.
And worry, I think, can be brought into like a whole separate issue. I feel like I've been on both sides of the optimist pessimist thing, and definitely have turned towards more of the optimist since coming across Seth. But like my starting off point used to be like, well, people are soft and they want it to be this way, therefore they're believing it this way. The truly brave choice is to like believe, like there is nothing after you die. You have to like take advantage while you're here. Like just taking, like almost automatically taking the pessimistic version of.
You think that's the brave choice?
No, this is how I used to think.
Oh, I see.
Sorry if I wasn't clear about that.
This is what I currently think.
I think that's not the brave choice because it's so easy. You can just leave whenever you want and there's nothing.
Well, here's my thing, right? Like,
Sorry.
But no, I just thought it like pressurized what you do have. Like it just makes every minute so valuable. So like that's how I got there, I guess.
that's true. There's like Nietzsche has a good thing about that, right? Like infinite recurrence. where it's like, imagine that you had to live the life you're living infinite times over. Like, you get reincarnated, but you don't get a new choice. You get the same life again and again and again.
Your memory is erased, and so you experience it.
You just experience your same life forever.
Yeah.
And that's essentially like the emotional impact equivalent of realizing that you only get to do it once. Because it means that for the entirety of your experience, whatever that is, it's just this. And you have to be okay with every decision, as if you had to do it an infinite number of times. They're essentially like emotionally equivalent, right? But the reason I think, if there's anyone in the audience that agrees with me on that one, I'll give you sort of an argument of why I think that's sort of a brave choice. Is like, I think a lot of times you can sort of look towards other people and see like how they act, and that informs like how you want to act, right? And one of the things I see people do a lot is that you can notice more easily in other people than in yourself when a belief they have is emotionally based rather than like intellectually based, right? And I feel like people's attitude towards death and like afterlife and stuff like that, from my estimation, tends to be very, psychologically, emotionally determined, with like very little input from like the facts of the situation, Like, I think most people want there to be an afterlife just because it feels good for there to be one. And I think there is some bravery in taking the first step of saying like, well, I'm going to doubt that, as a starting point.
I don't disagree. I completely agree. Most people believe there is an afterlife because they haven't given it any shred of thought. They just accept the religion they're born into, and they never even consider that the atheists have a point. But I think that like atheism is also itself kind of a weak choice.
It's also a belief, right? And a lot of atheists walk around looking at all religious people and dismissing them as believers, where to me, as an agnostic or a, pantheist spiritualist, like, I see atheists as just as much of a believer as any.
100%. Because a lot of them will make claims that are not scientifically sound. They just ignore all the evidence there is for near-death experiences. And they always have the pat excuse of, oh, these people who experience these things are just on a DMT trip, or their brain is deprived of oxygen, and that's why they're seeing these things. But they never actually look deep enough, because they don't actually want to know the truth, despite claiming that they want to know the truth more than Christians do. They don't actually look deep enough into the numerous case studies that disprove that it's a deprivation of oxygen or a DMT release. They don't actually look at all the doctors who were also previously atheists who had their minds changed because they witnessed things that could not be experienced in any other, that could not be explained in any other way besides consciousness is not a result of the brain, and consciousness is not localized to the organic creature.
Yeah.
So that's why I think atheists are like sometimes, especially like what I don't like about it is the hubris of them thinking they're better than Christians for looking into it, but they didn't actually look into it all the way because they're not interested in the truth that like we have now. We have MDs who are like, oh shit, there's more out there.
Yeah.
Consciousness does not cease at flatline.
Right.
I will say this. I think it was super valuable for my own experience to be like fully on that other side and to come out of it. I feel like I don't even know how I want to say it, but like I was like fully believing like in the pessimistic view, and I've been pulled out of it, and I don't think I would have been so strong in my current view if I didn't give myself fully to that view. So I mean, that's just another thing I can tell our audience as being, like the oldest person in this conversation is just like, it's pretty interesting to look back and see, like how much you can change your position and still feel like the same person.
Yeah, because that's a sign of like, intellectual honesty, right? Is like being willing to like change.
Yeah.
Being willing to like reevaluate the evidence that's available to you.
In some definitions, that's a definition of youth, just having the flexibility. Like, I'm not so lazy to like say like, oh, I figured out what's going on here. This is how it is. Like, and I'm going to close myself off to any evidence to the contrary.
Right.
But I think it takes like things like this. Like we have to, like we were talking before we went on air, like talking to people you disagree with there's just like, it can be so fruitful in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Where are we at here in our chapter?
We were just about to talk about Rob's pendulum.
Were we?
No, I want to talk about it though.
Does he get into that right away here?
Which page are we on right now?
I mean, I'm still in the beginning. Oh, so it's probably all the italics here.
It is all the italics. So, what was Rob? Rob had another one of the one of those like visual sort of like
Yeah,
I forget what he calls them.
a
Like
visual experience like that described in the notes for the 334th session, chapter 8. So we covered that a little bit there.
Yeah, so if you remember from chapter 8, Rob has had these things since he was a kid, and they sort of like interfere with his ability to like, at that one, it was like he couldn't take dictation very well, and it like blocks off some of his vision. And he sort of talked to Seth and now is under the impression that these things are sort of like him on like a different level, like his higher spiritual self helping him with his painting project, right? And then he gets out, he just like casually slips in here that he started asking his pendulum for advice. Do you guys know what his pendulum is? What is this?
A little bit, but yeah, I wish they kind of like missed the fact that this wasn't explained to the reader in this book very.
That is a good point. I think it shows up in like the ancillary books, personal sessions, early sessions.
Okay.
From what I understand of the pendulum is it's literally what it sounds like. You hold a little dangly bit and you ask yes or no questions, and the vertical axis is a yes and the horizontal.
Well, you can set whichever.
Yeah, whichever you
set.
But the way I understand, like, how does this work? You know, like what I think is like you kind of try to get into a relaxed state or a trance state, but like some part of you can like just take that a little bit amount of control of your shoulder, your arm, and move it, the part that knows the answer to these things. And you can like just go through these yes or no questions and just experiment. And I've done it. It's kind of cool.
Did it work for you?
I think so. I mean, I don't do it as much as I should because I'm pretty like, I don't know. I've had some validating experiences with it. But a lot of the questions like aren't necessarily things that it can answer. Like questions like, should I do this or should I do this? You can frame that in a yes or no question. But basically the answer is like, I get to decide. Not only do I get to, I have to decide. This is my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pendulum is not going to be like, oh yeah, like change your entire course of your life.
Yeah, we're not going to, your higher self isn't going to be like, oh, you know, you should do what I think you should do. That's what this is. Like, this is the part of consciousness that is like operating in this world. So
you can't just do heads Carolina, tails California.
Sure. What's your experience with the pendulum, or have you?
Yeah, like just essentially that it's a way for your unconscious to come forward, because normally in waking life you are so full of like society's limiting beliefs and like what you're told you're supposed to do, what you ought to do, that you might suppress impulses and not even realize that you're doing it. So when you use a pendulum, supposedly you're supposed to get into a really relaxed state where you're not like in that like rigid, I'm an adult mode or whatever. And like Michael said, it's just a way for little impulses to come through that you wouldn't consciously be suppressing unless you're like holding the damn pendulum really rigidly, which is not how you're supposed to use it. But like anything else, it's just, I mean, we could probably sit here and come up with infinite ways to do that. You don't, like, I think Seth has told Rob that he doesn't need the pendulum. Rob likes to use it, and that's fine. So Seth encourages Rob to use it. But if Rob had fewer limiting beliefs, and like you and I are already starting to see that he has quite a few, if he were just more in tune with himself, he could just sit there and be like, what should I do? And just have those impulses come through naturally. But the pendulum is sort of like I don't want to say it's a placebo, because it's not a placebo. It's just a way for you to like get all that crap on the ego level out of the way so you can feel your unconscious.
It's a crutch. It's like the
Yeah.
the Ouija board that they started with, you know,
Yeah.
and then Jane had the sensitivity to just realize like, oh, this is, I can tell it's right there. I don't have to even move my hand or have this like set up.
Right.
Like, imagine if they wrote this whole book using the Ouija board. Like, that would have taken so fucking long.
We'd only have one book
Yeah.
instead of 30. Yeah.
man. Yeah.
But it would still be kind of cool. Like, holy shit, they wrote this whole book with a Ouija board.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was the same material, I think
They get
it'd be cool.
sued by Mattel.
Funny.
Also, I don't think Jane used. Did Jane use a pendulum? I don't feel like not as often as Rob.
They don't talk about it very much.
Well, and Rob talks too, like kind of like what you were talking about, where he's like trying to ask the pendulum about this like experience he's having, and he's like, "This isn't really what I even should be using this thing for. Like, this is kind of like too serious of a question for the pendulum." Like, he says it's like very useful for sort of like just like physical questions, just like about divining stuff about the world.
Yeah, or if you're having like pain in your leg or something, you can like delve into that. Like, we haven't really got into it, but like pain and illness are like really bizarrely different things in the Sethian concept of things. So that'll be for later. I'm trying to think what I've used it for. I think like in the past I've had like relationship issues so much where like I was just looking anywhere for answers, and I was like, do I have like a reincarnational history with this person? Why is this so difficult? You know, and just like asking questions like that. And it's again, it's one of those things like, I don't know if it's actually true, but
You might find this interesting, Joe. There was a point where Rob asked the pendulum for something, and Seth said that the pendulum was wrong.
Whoa.
So there is like, because you can mess it up if you know, like I said, if you're really tense about the thing and you twitch because you're holding this tension you're not aware of in your neck and your back, it's gonna affect this little dangly thing. But Michael, I would disagree. I think your entity is trying to tell you what to do, but not in like a really controlling, bossy way. It wants you to, like, it knows what your best path forward is, and it'll send you those impulses, but you're free to do whatever the heck you want.
yeah, I think there's like a distinction between like both things can be the case, maybe. Like sometimes a choice between A or B to the entity isn't going to matter. Like you're going to have this development that it is choosing to have no matter what you choose. And then sometimes it's like, it's obvious, like I was saying before, like outside of time, you are choosing this one path. And maybe in those times, if you're questioning that, then the pendulum or the entity via the pendulum could tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the pendulum swings like really hard, and it's like, whoa.
It flies across the...
Yeah.
It's funny, like, because we're like so familiar with these things, like I just like breeze right past the Rob talking about his pendulum. But like, I appreciate you bringing it up, Joe.
Oh yeah, our
It's good
listeners need
context.
new divining tools that they can go out and purchase on Etsy.
Yeah.
It's funny because Rob usually gets into like way too much exposition about like everything. Like I think he mentioned the mitochondria once, and he was like, for those of you who don't remember it, I was like, yeah, we get it, we can look it up. But like, you can't easily look up what the heck this pendulum stuff is.
The Unknown Reality books, I think, were intended to be one book, but Rob, that was his like peak Rob parenthetical. I feel like half that book is
Definitely.
Rob parentheticals.
Yes.
We just need Rob Speaks, and it's just all of his parentheticals.
I think didn't he die like 5 or 10 years ago? Like he was not that long ago that he was still around. He could have just showed up and asked him some questions.
I would have so many questions for him.
Yeah.
In some reality, we do have a Rob Speaks book, and it's fascinating.
That's my next reincarnation. I'm going there.
I feel like even in that reality, I'm like, that's not my favorite. Where are we at here? He's talking about different ways people reincarnate.
Yeah, so now he's like focusing on like, all right, we said these are the options. Like now let's talk more about reincarnation, right?
Says reincarnation involves far more than a simple decision to undergo another physical existence. Many issues, therefore, are considered a one-line progression in which the soul perfects itself in each succeeding life. This is a gross simplification. There are endless varieties of this one theme, individual variations. And he talks about people that choose to like really focus on one quality. It's talking about like, I think, is he implying this a little bit more rare, but like people almost in an overdeveloped sense, like focus on the intellect almost to the detriment to other qualities. And then their next life, it'll be focusing on the emotion.
Yeah.
And it gives them, presumably people that are choosing this are kind of knowing what they're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives them this, not only does it give them like a really strong juxtaposition of what you get, but it also, this is the part that I thought that was really interesting, is through denying themselves, say, the intellectual development in a given life, personalities also learn the value and purpose of that which they do not possess. The desire for it is then born within them. That last part is what I'm referring to as interesting to me, because in my own personal questioning of like free will and stuff, I've often questioned like, do I get to choose what I desire? Like, because if I could choose, like, why don't I choose to love like broccoli and spinach? Because that would be better for me. Like, these tasted the best. I feel like I don't get to choose that I like this. But I think that's, in some way, that's a narrow view. He's saying like, this is one aspect where you can like choose your desire almost by like this deprivation, going through a life where you don't have the intellect, for example, brings a very strong desire for it. And I've seen this in, you know, some people in my life that have like been born poor, grew up poor, and they've like worked their whole lives and they have a lot. They have a bounty, but they still can't like stop from like working overtime. Like that need that, like my grandpa, for example, like lived through the Depression, and for the rest of his life, he never didn't clean his plate. Like, I remember we went to this Italian restaurant, the whole family, and he was the only one that like just like chowed down all his pasta. Even you could tell it was like almost painful for him, but like he just had that in him. And like he just went through this period of deprivation, which created this, it would be more than a desire in that sense, maybe like an insecurity or something, but
A trauma.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought that was cool. That it just answered one of my questions, like, do we ever have any control of our desires? And of course, I kind of believe in what we're talking about here. When you're like setting up your next life, I'm sure that that's probably a big part of it.
Yeah. Liana, what did you think about this part?
I can relate to not liking certain foods, but I was thinking about how like Seth has said, if you want to have like a physical outcome, like he specifically used the example of wanting to lose weight. He said he said that the way he would approach it is to feel the way you would feel if you were already the way you want to be, to love your body. And that would automatically change your cravings so that you would eat less without even noticing it. As in, you don't have to go through the super disciplined approach of deprivation and counting calories and all that stuff. But that it's also important to look at the beliefs of why you might be overweight. And he specifically gave the example of some people unconsciously feel like they have to be like bigger so they can be menacing. And they feel it like if they were smaller, they would be taken advantage of. And he said, you know, you need to look out for limiting beliefs like that. But if you just assume the feeling of having, like being the weight that you want to be, your body cravings would automatically change. So I'm sitting here wondering if you could do that with specific foods.
I think that's really beautiful that life is like so complex that all of that can be reflected in just like your cravings for a food.
Yeah.
Don't you think? And like when I was saying earlier, like, you know, why don't I like broccoli or spinach? But like, I actually do like them if it's like prepared a certain way. And like, when I think about liking something, it's like, I'm just being told it's healthy for me. Maybe my particular body doesn't need whatever is in this or this specific thing.
That's true.
Like, I don't necessarily, like, I can't operate on like the idea that this is a perfect fact that broccoli is good for every single person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially if like your beliefs can actually change like how the food affects your body, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if that's the case, then it's like, well, I'm just going to be the kind of person that just thinks, you know, chocolate chip cookies are really good for me. I'm just going to eat that all day long.
That also reminds me, and getting back to the pendulum Seth talks about, he says you should do this, I think, that like you should hold the pendulum over like different colors of clothing
Yeah.
to see what your subconscious prefers, and you'll actually improve your life by like wearing certain colors.
Oh, hell yeah.
I haven't actually done that, but like maybe part of me is afraid my subconscious won't like the same colors I like, or I don't know.
Catch Michael with the monochromatic fits coming.
Yeah, if you see me like in all hot pink next week, you know what happened. I used to wear a little hot pink back in the day.
It's not a bad color to wear. It's just very loud.
It was really in style for a brief moment in the 90s, and I had some hot pink Zubas, and then we took a vacation to Alaska and had to use like a laundromat, and it took all the hot out of my hot pink, and I was so devastated.
Cool pink.
Now it's just regular pink.
I just wanted to say, Seth does say at some point that if your beliefs are right, you can be healthy eating TB dinners all day.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's another part of it. Yeah, like we shouldn't have these strong beliefs that like this is good and this is bad. Again, it gets to that black and white thinking, which we just over rely on.
Makes you wonder if we just changed the messaging of like, fried foods, all sugary foods are bad for you, how much it would change public health. If we could actually get people to stop believing that stuff was bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, elsewhere he says like everything's suggestion. So like if you've been told your whole life and you believe that this is bad for you, and you're giving yourself that message as you're shoveling it in your face, like, that's like time that you're just like oriented in that belief. And I mean, taking this seriously, that sounds like not a good thing to do.
Well, and listener, like, this might come off as a little bit hokey, but like bear with us for a little bit, because if you actually look back at the history of like dietary recommendations, like there's a very close link. Like the same people who were like the founding, minds of like, well, you should eat this kind of food because it's better for your body than this kind of food, were the same kind of people who were kind of big on like sexual repression in the culture. Like there's a direct link between those two things. Like, the guy who, what was his name? The guy who made like cereal or whatever?
Kellogg.
Yeah. Kellogg.
Cornflakes specifically to reduce masturbation.
To reduce masturbation.
Do you think, but what do you think is going on there? Like that even in that person, like the suppression of their own appetites, like came through in like food, or they were just trying to push their views onto the world, or
yeah, I mean,
all that.
You guys use the term like limiting beliefs, right? Like I think it's a limiting belief in regards to the appetite, right?
Mm-hmm.
To desires, to like fully like embracing like these are things that I like and these are things that I want, and being able to cope with that. So like I understand that in the year of our Lord, 2024, like the dietary recommendations thing seems a little solid, but it's like, look at the history, think about it.
I mean,
I will say that in medical school, they taught us that the food pyramid is absolute garbage. So no, the dietary recommendations are not.
Oh, we're still using that one, huh?
But also like nutrition itself is, I feel like in my lifetime, it's always been a moving target. Like first of all, like cholesterol was bad and then it was good, or the fat was bad and then it's good, and now carbs are bad, and
now seed oils are the devil.
Yeah, it just changes so much. And from what I've seen just like on scientific studies of nutrition, and it makes sense to me, buying into Seth material, but like it can behave so differently. Different people in different times and different situations.
There's a lot of conflicting information out there.
But it's that's the belief going in is that this one chemical should act consistently a certain way in all people at all times, and it just doesn't work that way.
Right. I think the best way is just pick the diet you want and then placebo yourself by reading up about why that diet is good and see what you
It can't be any worse than the other options, right?
So all these listicle writers are actually doing a public service. It's like 10 reasons why paleo is great for you.
I think it can't be a good thing to like never give yourself what you actually crave for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't think so.
Treat yourself.
That's our show, but fear not, the never-ending conversation continues next week. If you're enjoying the show, please be so kind as to subscribe, like, rate, and review, and if you're feeling frisky, tell a friend. Contact us at implicatingthereal@gmail.com. You can support the show at patreon.com/implicatingthereal. We are doing our best, but whatever support you can lend helps us appreciably. We are not affiliated with the publishers or proprietors, but we encourage you to get the books. You can follow along as we endeavor to dive deep into the Sethian worldview, and there's really nothing like cultivating your own relationship with the material. Until next week, we wish you a fond good evening.